A very good afternoon to you, Rudolf. Could you kindly talk us through the activity that we are seeing on the market? Sector rotation, is it still continuing?
Yes, we saw some rotation out of retailers into the resources, the more cyclical stocks, when stimulus from the Fed and also from the ECB was announced. And I think in the past week we've seen that rotation reversing as the investors are taking some profit that they made from the resource counters, and also seeing some of the labor unrest causing some issues in South Africa.
Now let's take a look at some of the data points that came out. We had the second quarter GDP numbers up by 1.6%, a considerable turnaround within the primary and secondary sectors there.
Yeah, I think compared to the first quarter where we saw a decline of 0.7%, the 1.6% was a nice rebound. Mining especially rebounded quite nicely. I think we, especially compared to last year, where we saw heavy rains causing some disruptions in the mining operations in some of the uranium mines especially. Also a big uranium mine having some great problems last year where they were stripping some of the walls of the mine. And also some strikes last year in the diamond sector, which is a very important sector for Namibia, a big contributor to GDP, where we saw a rebound this quarter, which led to that increase in GDP.
So we saw a rebound within the mining and quarrying sector, but the agricultural sector fell back by 12.7%. Could you talk us through what led to that fall?
I think one factor that led to that was some lower meat prices. I think farmers were rather selling their live cattle abroad in South African market, where they got better prices instead of sending them to the abattoirs here, which obviously has a bigger effect and a knock-on effect on the GDP. And then I think in our exporting destinations, of which Europe is an important one, we saw obviously weak conditions overseas there. So I think that also had a major impact, which just shows us that Namibia is not an island.
Looking at the overall performance within the first quarter of the year and the second quarter of the year, you've got a forecast of about 5% for 2012. Could we see that 5% being reached, given the fact that we've only had a growth of 1.6 in the second quarter and we were down 0.7% in the first quarter?
Yes, I think if you take the first quarter and second quarter growth as it came out, that leads you to believe that growth will be slightly closer to 4%, maybe still under 4%. But the quarterly GDP figures are often very different from the annual GDP figures. It's collected in a different way, and it differs quite a bit sometimes. So we're still looking at some of the economic indicators. We see strong vehicle sales, strong construction sectors and mining sectors recovering, and we hope to see those sectors continuing to contribute, and we hope for a positive surprise at the end of the year.
Well, you were talking about strikes. We've also had a number of strikes here in South Africa. Could you talk us through the industries where we are seeing strikes and the kind of impact that they are having on these companies right now?
Earlier the year we had a strike at a certain gold mine, and also at the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation. Now, luckily, I think for the Namibian economy, these aren't sectors that contribute a lot to GDP, so the effect was muted so far. Currently, we are seeing a strike in the Agricultural Bank of Namibia and also the Polytechnic of Namibia. Now, again, not sectors that the agricultural sector, obviously an important one, but I think what is also probably more worrying is the knock-on effect that we can see if these strikes continue, and if it flows into other sectors, I think we saw the big impact that the strike in the mining sector had last year, and so if the strikes spill over to these sectors, we might see a meaningful effect.
Well, moving on to company news, Namibia breweries are expected to release results next week, Wednesday. What kind of results are you expecting out of this company?
I think we are expecting quite solid results. The interim results were quite solid. Expecting about earnings per share growth of about close to 16%, which is not spectacular, but solid, I think. I think what's more interesting maybe is the developments with effect of their operations in South Africa. Namibian breweries are involved in a joint venture in South Africa, DHN Drinks, and there has been a cautionary out on this, and we hope to see some information coming out on that joint venture next week, and we certainly would hope to see that the loss that the JV is making at the moment steadily disappearing from that income statement, which will have a material effect on their bottom line and could cause a re-rating in the share price.
Well, we've got a newcomer on the local bourse. That was Nictus. It listed in last week's trading session. We know that your company had a lot to do with that. Could you kindly talk us through the kind of performance we are seeing on Nictus currently?
Well, yeah, the share listed on Friday on the Namibian Stock Exchange. It's a kind of a coming home story for Nictus. It's a Namibian company incorporated in 1960, and it's listed by Namibian's stockbroker on the Namibian Stock Exchange. It listed at R2.50 on Friday. We haven't seen a lot of activity in it yet. The placement was a private placement as of yet, but we do believe that the unbundling of that company will create some value for shareholders in the sense that it will cause for some flexibility in the two remaining entities because they operate in two very different operational and regulatory environments, and we hope to see some value being unlocked for shareholders.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rudolf Kuschke. He's from Simonis Storm Securities, joining us from Namibia.